Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Robertson. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority. And before I introduce our guest today, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, specifically the Esquimalt Nation and the Songhees Nation, whose relationship to the land and harbor continue to this day. We're very honored to have both the Songhees Nation, the Esquimalt Nation on the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority's Board of Directors. Today, we're going to talk about cruise resumption, our plans. I'm sure you've all read and heard that our first ship is now going to be April the 9th. And we will be welcoming the first ship to Victoria and actually the first ship to Canada on April the 9th. My guest is Hernan Zini, VP Worldwide Port Operations, and Royal Caribbean's first ship into Victoria is on April 28th. And it's going to be a very strong year for all of our cruise lines, specifically for Royal Caribbean. There's 52 calls from Royal Caribbean, 46 from Celebrity, and 2 from Silver Seas. So today, I'm really pleased and grateful for Hernan taking time out of his busy schedule to join us. And Hernan, maybe I can just start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your career with Royal Caribbean. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here with you and all the people that are interested in this conversation. It's a pleasure to be here, and we are very excited, by the way, about resumption of cruising, in Canada in general, and with Victoria in particular. So I'm Captain Zini, Vice President of Port Operations. I've been with Royal Caribbean for 31 years, and I did a good part of my life at sea, working on the ships like the one that you see behind me. I became captain of Royal Caribbean, captained many of the different classes, got the privilege of captaining the largest cruise ships like Allure of the Seas, which is part of the Aces class. And then I moved shoreside on my second part of the career, I say, to work in different positions as a fleet captain in charge of all the nautical operation. I lived in China for a few years in a joint venture, and I came back from Miami to HR, and in the last 4 years, I've been working in port operations. So on my current role in Royal Caribbean, I'm responsible for providing all the port services for our fleets around the world. We visit around 900 ports in a normal year. We miss a few of them on the last 2, but we are looking forward to start visiting them all again. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for the invite again.
You're welcome. Before we started, I asked you if you'd ever been to Victoria, and actually you said, yeah, you had captained a ship coming into Victoria. Yeah, how long ago was that?
Oh, that was probably more than 12 years ago, 14 years ago. So I've been there a few times, as I mentioned. Unfortunately, I didn't get off the ship. When you are a captain, you're always worried about the ship. Not worried, but you are attentive to the ship. So I didn't get a chance to get off the ship. But everybody that goes off in Victoria comes with a big smile on their face. Very similar comments, very clean. I hear all the time about the gardens you have, the beautiful gardens. People love to go there. The history, the culture, and the friendliness of the people, and the fact that it's a very clean environment, which I'm sure is part of the topics we touch today. Keeping Victoria pristine is something that our guests enjoy as much as probably the pride you have as a community of the destination.
Well, I was going to ask you, your favorite spot in Victoria, but obviously that's really tough to answer because you never, unfortunately, were able to leave the ship. So I'll leave that for another time, and hopefully you'll come back and you'll come and be able to actually get off a ship and walk around Victoria, and then I'll be able to ask you what your favorite spot in Victoria is about.
It's a new boiler. Without that, it's a new boiler that allowed us to dock the Quantum ships. That's my favorite Victoria sport.
Okay. Okay. So tell me now, for, as we mentioned, our first ship back into Victoria and Canada, it's over 2 years. I think someone did the count. It's like 905 days. So for us, we're just getting back into operation, and our first ship is on Saturday, April the 9th. But Royal Caribbean and all of your brands have been sailing now for a while. Maybe you can sort of talk about how resumption has gone for Royal Caribbean kind of around the world.
Sure. So I have to say that in generally speaking, I would say that we worked really hard through the time that we had to stop to prepare for the time that we were ready for return to service. And we worked with a panel of experts in US and Europe to come out really with the best protocols we can imagine to make sure that we can operate safely with our ships. And at that time, when we were ready to start, vaccines were not part of the mix. So we were getting ready to operate without vaccines, which today you will almost be thinking that it's incomprehensible. And as we start getting ready, the vaccines came into force, and we managed to put the vaccines into the protocols before we even started. So from the very beginning, we have started the operation with vaccination in place. So that is, we have one ship that was a little bit different than that because it was operating in what we call a micro environment in Singapore, which we learned a lot from that ship. But for here in the Caribbean, when we started, say, the large size of the fleet, we started with vaccines as part of our protocols, plus everything else that we do, testing, social distance, all the things you can expect on the initial times of COVID. And the protocols work very well. You know, we have a commitment to our guests to keep them safe, to look after them if something happens during the cruise, in case they have to quarantine or extend their stay. And also we had a commitment to the destinations, because many destinations, you know, don't have the hospitals capabilities for large numbers. So when they see a ship arriving with 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 people, immediately think, what if the ship has an outbreak and those guests need hospitalization and we only have a few beds? What I can tell you is that our protocols have worked very well. And they have worked, you know, I can tell you this in many things, but the best way that I can tell you is that we haven't really used any hospital beds in the Caribbean for all the ships in the Caribbean for any single guest related to COVID. So we have had a few guests initially that we airlifted when we were in the port of calls, and mainly as a precaution, we didn't want to keep them on board. But then we learned to actually keep these guests on board till the home port, till the cruise is finished, because what we have seen that with a high level of vaccination that we have on the ships, every adult has to be vaccinated to come on board, 12 and up. When we had cases, because you cannot stop the cases, when you have cases, the cases were small in numbers and they were very mild in symptoms or asymptomatic. So in that sense, medically speaking, we didn't have really big issues on board the ship, and consequently, we have no issues on the supporting destinations and the hospitals. We didn't use a single hospital bed. We didn't even leave a guest behind with COVID in a hotel on any of the port of calls. And we learned very quickly to initially leverage some air transportation just to get the guests quickly home. But then when we realized that probably that was even not necessary, we leveraged the home ports, and we did that without really putting any burden on the society. So that probably is the best way that I can describe how the protocols work. And I think it's important because when people see the ships coming, there's always some concerns that they have, for especially, you know, people are still thinking was 3 years ago when all of this started, and with that in mind, at that time we all were learning, and the cruise industry was just part of society of learning. We got cut into something that we were not prepared, but we're in a much different place now. So we feel very good about our protocols. They're working. The number of cases on board the ship is very low, and the cases are very mild. That's in general what we are seeing. And that means that the ships are coming and going, and you know, it's almost business as usual, you know, and more it's becoming business as usual, which is great for the guests. Initially, we started with, for instance, restricting guests not to go everywhere in the society because we wanted to keep like bubbles. So we tried to keep them only in you know, pre-arranged tours. But then what we learned with that is the society, when they start seeing the ships coming and they see that the guests are there, and you know, many of the merchants are not benefiting from that. That's not good for the destination either, not for us and not for the guests. But initially we had to start with some concessions to make sure that we can keep everybody safe. And very quickly we all get accustomed to that. We start gaining confidence on the protocols working. The destinations start getting confident with the ship being there, and we start opening more what the guests can do. And today the guests are free flowing everywhere. They go and enjoy the destinations. None of the destinations have really reported cases caused by our guests, let's say. I'm not saying that could not happen, but it's not the norm. And we really haven't burdened their medical system. So all of that points towards, I would say, a normalization, or some people will call it the new normal, or whatever it is. But the reality is that we're starting to see more and more things coming back to where we all started, just we are better prepared, and we still need to be vigilant and, of course, very focused on executing our protocols every day. But overall, I think it works very well.
No, that's really great to hear. I think it sounds like with the protocols. So first, with the fact that all the passengers before boarding any of the ship, whether it's yours or anyone else's, they've got to provide a negative test. They've got to be double vaccinated. So I think in combination with that, it sounds like the steps you're taking on board the ship. And then, for example, coming into Victoria, Victoria actually happens to be probably one of the most highest rates of vaccinations of anywhere in Canada. And I might even suggest any, higher rates than anywhere in North America. So I think with the combination of all of that, we're going to keep your guests safe, and we're also going to keep the community safe. You mentioned,
let me say something.
Yeah.
We have not yet found a destination, and maybe Victoria could be the first one, that has higher level of vaccination of our ships.
Okay. Well,
think about that.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
So our ships are above 95% on vaccination.
Yeah.
The crew is 100%, the guest is 95%. And the reason why there is that 5% is because there is a number of eligible children that don't have the age for vaccine.
Right.
All the others are vaccinated. I have not found one destination yet that can claim the title from us.
Well, I might ask Brian in the background to see if he can try to track down where Victoria's vaccination rate. But that is, regardless, that's really, really good to hear. We actually got a question, and it does relate to protocols, and I'll just read it out. It says, what do the protocols mean for the overall guest experience on board? Are there things, obviously venues or whatever, that are off limits, closed, etc.? So it's a great question. Are anything closed or working minimally on board the ship?
Yeah, as I said, we are more and more moving towards more normalization. We are operating here in US following some of the CDC guidance that they have. It's a voluntary program, and our ships are operated. CDC has 3 categories. One is called ships highly vaccinated, which is more than 95%. Above that is a high standard of vaccination when 100% of the guests has boosters. That's, let's say, a higher standard. But within 95%, you could normalize separations. You don't need to mask. It's not compulsory. It's optional. And while we encourage guests to keep a distance and wash their hands and do all the things, the ships start to feel more like normal. So I would say that starts to feel more and more like a normal vacation experience. The other thing, I think, is not because of our choice yet, but just the way that the resumption is happening. The capacity is not yet, I would say, 100%, but it's coming up quite fast, I would say. So the ship still has a little more space than usual because of that, So it's a really good time to go cruising when you think about it, because you get all the benefits of the service, and maybe not as many people as before, at least not for now. And people are really having a good time. So I would say it feels quite normal, the protocols on board.
Good. May I ask, how are bookings looking for Alaska this year? Are you able to comment on that?
Yes, I'm in my position. I don't have the booking numbers, and I cannot even have them give information about future bookings. But I would say that in general, if you listen to our earning calls and things, even other cruise lines calls, you hear a record booking. This week was a record of all our years. You hear statements like that. There is enough public information that indicates that the cruise industry is seeing a very positive booking environment, and you can just pick up that from the earning calls of different cruise lines. And that reflects obviously on the type of season that we're expecting to see in Alaska. Alaska is Alaska in general, and the West Coast, including, of course, Victoria is a very popular destination, and it's been missing. It's been missing for too long now, because even last year when we got a bit of a taste of a mini Alaska season, Victoria was not there and Vancouver were not there. And this year we're going to have the full potential of the region together. So I think there is a lot of appetite for people to go and see the region, and we're going to see a very good season.
Well, that's really great to hear. I know that I can't tell you how much residents, businesses, tour operators have missed cruise. So we're all thrilled that the cruise is returning returning to Victoria. It's returning to Canada. Maybe just talk a little bit about what the guests can expect when they come on board your ship in terms of, I know I've been on a cruise. In fact, my first cruise was on a Royal Caribbean. It was on Radiance of the Seas up to Alaska. And I know that, my first cruise, I was always made to feel very welcome. Is there anything special that guests can expect when they come on a ship now, welcoming them back? What steps is Royal Caribbean taking to welcome guests back on board the ship?
Well, I would say that one thing that is never, you don't expect anything different on our ship, but I think it's even more noticeable now. Our crew has been missing being in service for a couple of years, and when we resume cruising and we start receiving guests, they were, if normally our crew is amazing, just a way to bring the ship alive, it's like put that amazing on the steroids, and that's the kind of experience you get, because we were genuinely excited to have guests back on our ships, and the crew brings the ship live in a way that if it's good in the normal times, imagine how it is now, when people feel very positive about the fact that we are back in business. So I think you're going to find a very, very good energy on board the ship. Obviously, we use the time to continue to refine our protocols and see what else we can improve. That's part of our day-to-day. We're always looking what can we do for our guest experience. And I think people will find a wonderful time on board the ship. So I probably am not the best person to comment on particular programs in that, because I'm not really into the details of that. But I know our teams have been working very hard to make sure that the ship have a wonderful time. With my team, we're working to make sure that the terminal experience is seamless. So despite of all the COVID protocols that we have, we can board people very quickly with new technology in place, and everything to make sure that the guests can very quickly get on board the ship and start enjoying the vacation experience in minutes.
Let me ask you, in terms of the Alaska itinerary, is there anything in particular that you personally are most excited about for 2022?
I'm not sure if it was 2022, but in general, I would say Alaska is always one of those itineraries that grounds you. In general, I would say, and I can say this as a captain, as a sailor. When you been at sea for many years, we used to do all kind of things with the ship to bring the ship closer to nature, right? And then because of different reasons, that began changing a little bit, because you have to go the shorter distance, you have to minimize your fuel consumption, you have to do a lot of good things. But Alaska is one of those places where you can still do what you have to do and be immersed in nature. And I think for people like me that have been locked down for 2 years of COVID, working from home, every time that I go to nature, I find myself like, I don't know, I take a different perspective in life that says, this is what I've been missing. And to be honest, sometimes even before, you didn't appreciate it to the same magnitude because you took it for granted that you could have it. So I can speak from my experience that every time I immerse myself in nature, whether it's going to a walk on the forest, or in this case, sailing, look at the landscape of the ship that I have on the back of my picture, in areas like that, or along the coast of Canada, in the Inside Passage, it's breathtaking. And I think particularly coming from years of being in-house, being transported to this environment, I think could be an experience in itself that's worth thinking. And I can imagine many people just reflecting on that and enjoying the moment of having a little hot chocolate, just looking at the ship sail by in the Inside Passages. Where else you want to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's remarkable. I know from talking to travel agents and your partners, other cruise lines, and obviously everyone at Royal Caribbean, Alaska is a real bucket list, as they say, a bucket list cruise, and always high demand. And as I said, having had the opportunity to cruise to Alaska many years ago, it was really impactful. And I think, as you say, nature was one of them. I remember you leaving the Radiance of the Seas, heading out from Vancouver, and literally and heading up through to Campbell River, and the dolphins alongside, porpoises alongside the bow of the ship, and they were jumping, with the wake, and that to me was just remarkable. I could have turned around and come back to Vancouver, and I thought I'd seen it all. But yeah, so it's those little glimpses of nature that I think make it memorable.
The other thing here,
Yeah.
what you see, I sometimes watch people, on my times on the ships, and in the Caribbean, you find people are, when your ship is sailing, most of you're looking inside the ship. You're having a party, you're enjoying a show, which wonderful things you can do. It's fantastic. But you see in Alaska in general, people are looking out the ship.
Yeah.
They are standing on the side of the ship and just looking at the coastline and taking a moment. So it's a different way to enjoy the cruise,
Yeah.
and there is no right or wrong, but that's what Alaska offers. And I think, as you say, well, it's not many places in the world that can offer that.
Let's shift a little bit, and let's talk about sustainability. I know that Royal Caribbean has been taking a number of initiatives around sustainability. Can you tell us about what steps you're taking or going to be taking to kind of manage this area of your business?
Sure. Well, the first thing I would like to probably point out is, like, because now everybody's talking about GVHA and sustainability and your carbon footprint, and they're very important topics, but we've been talking about sustainability for over 30 years. We implemented our Save the Wave program many, many years ago, decades ago. And we basically based it in a couple of simple principles, to reduce waste, to recycle and reuse as much as possible, and to continuously improve, do our very best to do well for the environment and the ocean, which is really our livelihood. So this is not a new topic for us. Obviously, we just have to always take it to a new level, like anything in life, and we are in the journey of doing that. But we've been at this journey for many, many years. Just to give you an example, every class of ship that we have taken out has been typically between 20 and 25% more fuel efficient than the previous class. And that doesn't just happen overnight. That happens with a lot of efforts. You need to look at hull design. You need to look at coatings. You need to look at air conditioning systems on board the ship. Sometimes 20% of our energy can be on air conditioning. We look at the propellers. We look at the stabilizers, hubs, and how you can close those. I can give you hundreds of projects. We could talk for hours about what we've been doing. And we've been doing that year after year, class after class. And it shows on the significant environmental improvements in terms of energy consumption that we have every new class of ship. So that has been in effect now for years. Now, we do understand that as good as that is, it's not enough for the planet, and we all want to do more. So we are embarking on our new destination, which is destination net zero, which is a roadmap for us to get to a zero carbon gases. We want to be very thoughtful and very careful, because it's easy to promise things, but we want to make sure that we are science-based, and if we're going to set up targets, we can measure clearly, and we can report on that clearly. So we are taking the next 18 months to really come up with the next set of targets for the next, I would say, 20, 30 years, right? And of course, those will change because technology changes and things change. But right now, we are in the process of really taking a deep look at everything that we can reasonably do in our power to contribute to that. And then within that period of time, be able to come up with public targets to complement everything that we've been doing up to now. But what I do want to make sure is it doesn't get lost in the message. It's not like we are just coming up with targets to do something now. This is part of what we've been doing. And if you could split in terms of carbon gases, I'm going to try to simplify something that is not as simple as, in two parts. In one way, you still need to make sure that you reduce your energy consumption. So, and we've been doing that for years, as I told you. We improve every single class. And every day we have technical teams looking at every element of our operation, how we can reduce the consumption of energy on board the ships. The second element is how can we make that energy, whatever little is, because you can reduce it, more friendly, and what basically the best fuels are. And that's where the technology will need a bit more time for that. We have the traditional diesel engines, which are much more efficient than in the past. Now we are having new ships with gas, LNG supply, which is a much cleaner combustion, but still it's not enough. And you start talking about for the future with other biofuels, and fuel cells, and all that technology is still, I would say, is not readily available on scale for the size of our ships, but we are working towards that. So it's a journey, and that's what we're going to take the next, I would say, 18 months to really map it out. But in the meantime, we continue to work very focused every day, how to reduce the energy consumption, how to transition to the technologies that already exist in place. So we are bringing new ships into operation with gas fuel. And we even know that that's going to be obsolete for the future. How we're going to transition from that into the next fuel element that will allow us to reduce our gases to neutral, basically. It's not an easy journey for us, for society in general, but we are committed to embark on that. And we are really taking a very deep look to see what else can we do on top of everything that we've been doing, and come up within the next 18 months with a very concise, clear set of targets that, as I say, is science-based. And we say science-based is not just a word. It is, if you Google, actually, you see what they call the SBTI, which is a science-based technology institute. It's basically is an institution that can measure that what you're saying is really meaningful for gas reduction. So we are going to take time. So when we can speak eloquently about the targets, we can say with confidence that this is what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is how it's going to be measured. And by the way, it's measured by third parties that are reputable on this.
So is it fair to say that you're going to take the next 18 months to map out what the plan is going to look like to get you to net zero? And once you get there, is that a document or a plan that would be available on your website to kind of, so people can understand exactly kind of the steps you're going to take to get there? I would assume, right?
That's our intention. And again, I will repeat, in the meantime, we're already working on that. Every day we are working on transition to new fuel supplies like LNG, and we are working on the reduction of energy consumption aboard a ship, and pretty much everything that, name a system and we tell you what we are doing. Theater, for instance, we used to have the spotlights that exhaust heat, consume high energy, and then you need more air conditioning to cool them down. We changed for LEDs. Now you reduce the consumption and you reduce the load on the air conditioning. That's just one sample of hundreds of samples that I can give you every day on board the ship that we've been thinking and implementing.
Oh, that's remarkable. So even right from the type of lights, I mean, that's interesting thinking that through. I mean, that makes logical sense. If you can reduce, the energy and the heat, then that also makes not only the lights more efficient, but also makes the air conditioning more efficient, which means you're using less fuel and being more efficient. That's remarkable. That's remarkable that you're taking.
We have a very talented group of engineers that they wake up every day thinking about what is the next thing and where we're going to go reduce the next energy. That's why I think it's important. Sometimes people talking about net carbon, thinking about fuel transition.
Yeah,
that's very important. Don't get me wrong. It's very important. It's a very challenging piece, but it's important. But just as well, you need to continue to focus on making your fuel consumption more efficient and reduce, through your systems, improve your systems so you have less consumption in the first place. So you really need to take a tier approach. And we've been very successful on the reduction of energy. And we are on the journey to the transitional fuels, which is, we are joining the world on that, but that's a journey that will take a longer path because, they're not ready available yet. But every day there are new technologies and new progress made on the fields.
Well, it's exciting. That's impressive that you're taking the time to be able to kind of not say get it right, but be able to take the time to really say, okay, what can we honestly and what can we do and how are we going to get there? And you just can't come up with. You've got to take the time to think that through as to how that's going to happen. So that's fantastic to hear. Maybe shifting.
Sometimes, sometimes also we need to articulate the story because a lot of things that we do, we don't spend time talking about it because we just in the business of continuous improvement. So I think nowadays it's just as important that you have a good plan and you execute a plan, but also you communicate the plan. Because people really more than ever wants to know what you're doing. And if you do, but you don't communicate, it's not really good. It's not good enough. So the communication piece is also very important.
No, I couldn't agree more. You just shifting gears again, but Royal Caribbean recently launched a new ship, Wonder of the Seas. What can you tell us about the Wonder of the Seas and where is she currently sailing? Yeah,
so the ship is out of Fort Lauderdale for now, sailing in the Caribbean. It's the last of our Oasis class, the newest, I would say. It's an incredible ship. Of course, like any new ship, it's always exciting and new amenities and new restaurants and shows. The ship is doing very well. The ratings from our guests are really, really good. So all the feedback we have, the occupancy is quite high. So people really want to be there. That was a ship that initially was destined to start its journey at sea in China. And we were tailoring it for the Chinese market. And of course, China is a region that has not opened yet. There's probably some of you have seen the news and everything. So we had to quickly think, and we brought the ship to our closer home in the Caribbean, and the ship is doing extremely well. And now in a few weeks, she's going to be heading towards Europe for the summer season there.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's exciting. Now, speaking of Wonder of the Seas, an Oasis class ship, I remember having a conversation with one of your colleagues. This was pre-COVID, and we were talking about the fact that we were building our Dolphin in Victoria to accommodate larger vessels, and that and at the time there was some conversation about maybe bringing an Oasis class ship to the Pacific Northwest, and I'm happy to say that we've built our Dolphin to accommodate an Oasis class ship. Anything you can share with us? I know it's been 2 years of COVID, and it's probably changed a lot of plans, but I think some people might be interested to know if you do plan to bring a larger class of vessel to Alaska.
Yeah, so right now we are very focused on executing the season with our Quantum class. These are very large ships, and they are relatively new on the region, and we are doing very well with those. Never say never. We have a concrete plan. What I would say is all our larger ships, including the Quantum class, are very difficult. First of all, they cannot sail through the Panama Canal. So even with the new locks, because of the ship has protrusion lifeboats on the side, they cannot go through the Panama Canal. So when you look at moving an Oasis class to the West Coast, basically you either go through South America, through Cape Horn, or you basically come from Asia, right? So it's not very easy to do that. So besides the fact whether we can take Oasis class or not, it's not something that you can technically do overnight, because you have to really think about the entire season and the entire year of the ship and how it gets there. So there is no, I would say, immediate plans, but what I would say is Royal Caribbean has been the cruise line, and Royal Caribbean International has been the brand that has the largest growth in the region.
Wow.
I think if I remember right, I'm not a specialist on this, we have grown over 35% on the region. And we have definitely, from all the cruise lines operating there, we're the one that has the largest growth in Alaska. So I think that gives you our commitment to the region, and we have brought beautiful ships like Ovation and Quantum that are really beautiful ships for this itinerary, and we're very excited to have the season with them there and see how it goes.
Well, we're looking forward to having one of the Quantum class, the Ovation, come back and be able to actually use the Dolphin. I don't think it's never been used by a cruise ship, so hopefully Royal Caribbean will have that opportunity to try out and test the new Dolphin.
No, there was a lot of tears on that Dolphin. I know your team has worked very hard, and Cindy, I have to give them a lot of credit for working on that. So we are very happy with the port, doing infrastructure to accommodate our larger ships.
Well, we look forward to continuing to work with you. Another question, just around, I guess, is there anything that maybe, sort of pre-COVID and then coming out of COVID, is there anything that maybe Royal Caribbean has sort of learned through the process around over the last year or to dealing with COVID?
Well, I mean, we're learning every day. I'm trying to see if I get the question right. We have definitely learned a lot preparing for the COVID protocols, and then when you start implementing it and to see what works and what doesn't work. But in general, I would say that the guests, when they have come back to the ship, they have a wonderful time.
Yeah.
In general, and we have used the time, as I say, to adjust some of our products. But I don't think people will value some of the new things that we do on board the ship. Still, I think the cruise is going to feel very much like where you left it before,
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I answered the question to you, but we have learned a lot through COVID. Unfortunately, we have the choice to learn, and we have gone through different stages of the COVID crisis, if you're going to call it, that has been very challenging for us and for our crew. Stopping the ships, getting the guests home initially, getting our crew home, being able to resupply the ships and ports. Really, in some regions, just kick us off and say, "Get off my coastline, and we're not going to give you food and fuel." It was tough. It was tough, and society. If I could take one learning, is that and I hope as a society we do this one day. Forget about cruise ships, but let's talk about seafarers in general. We all live thanks to many seafarers that are at sea, bringing containers back and forth and making all the supply chain seamless, And those same crew members working on all those ships, cargo ships, container ships, cruise ships, had a really hard time when COVID hit because society saw the ships like, I don't need you, so stay out of my coast. And those are the same people that we need in normal times for our livelihood. So to me, as a captain, as a seafarer, I feel really bad about that, to be honest. And I hope that one day as society will reflect on the value of seafarers in general and how we treat them through this pandemic. And I hope that if this ever happen again, we can do better than that.
I think that's a great response. Thank you for sharing that. And I think you're absolutely right. And I hope that's what we as a society have kind of learned through this process is to, care more about the people, the seafarers, you say, that do this, and it's through no fault of theirs that this happened. So thank you, Hernan. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's really important for us to know. Just for those of you that are on the call, we're kind of winding down our call with Hernan Zini. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A function. Maybe one couple questions for me, Hernan. Where will you next be going on a ship? I mean, I don't know how often you're out on the ships and how much you're sort of in the office, but any plans to join one of the ships?
Yeah, so these days, to be honest, I spend more time on the terminals than on the ships. So because of my job, I tend to go to the ports and see how the embarkation, the whole guest experience and all the logistics works. And then I tend not to sail with the ship because I like to see many of those. And if you sail, so probably I will take some time off here. I do have some things on my bucket list.
Yes.
Alaska definitely is something that I like to do because, as I say, it's an activity that grounds you, relaxes you, and brings you in contact with nature. And particularly this stage of my life, I prefer that more than business. So that's if I go on a cruise, probably Alaska is more with me, right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if I go there. But I have plans to visit Seattle throughout the season, just to see how the ships sail from there, and probably Vancouver as well. All our home ports typically. And if I have the opportunity to visit Victoria, definitely I will let you know. This time I want to get off the ship. I've seen it so many times from the bridge that I need to put my foot on the dock.
Well, I look forward to that, and would like to welcome you to the ground, actually on the ground in Victoria, and show you some of the great sites. One last question for you. Okay, so what do you miss most about being on the ships, Hernan, from a captain's perspective?
Sorry?
What do you miss most about being on the ships, or about being a captain on board a ship?
So, the captains, we do typically 10 weeks on and 10 weeks off.
Yeah.
So what I miss the most is not the 10 weeks on, but having 10 weeks off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
When you move to corporate life, your vacation time is not as much, and then you're never on vacation.
Right.
But no, seriously speaking, I really enjoy the contact with people. I'm a people person, so I enjoy the contact with people, both guests and crew. I only enjoy that on the ships. You cannot be in this business if you're not a people person. And of course, more on the technical side, being on the bridge for arrivals and departures, and maneuvering the ship, and not so much maneuvering your latest stage as the captain when you get very proficient. That you take a really enjoyment of training and watching your junior officers learning and doing it themselves. That's always has been one of the nicest part of the day, and I do miss a little bit of that.
Oh wow! Actually, there's a question that's popped up. So for me,
Sure.
It's Ian. What are you most looking forward to about the return of cruise? Oh boy, I think two things. I'm looking forward to just being on the terminal. I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to being on the terminal on Saturday and seeing that first ship come back. It's been a long, long time. And for a lot of us, especially here in Victoria, we've really worked hard with all levels of government to ensure the safe return of crews. So I think it's seeing ships return to the terminal, but I also think it's seeing the return of the vibrancy to the downtown core. You know, Hernan, I was talking to a restaurant operator, I think during the first year of COVID, and she said, I really miss cruise. And I was a little bit surprised because a restaurant, you know, most of the cruise passengers will eat on the ship. So I was thinking, well, how do you miss that? She says, what I miss most was the vibrancy that cruise passengers bring to Victoria, the people in the street, the excitement, the people walking around, and the vibrancy that brings. So that really meant a lot to me, and I reflect on that, and I'm looking forward to just the return of people and the vibrancy that cruise brings. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to the most. Hernan, thank you. You know, we're all very appreciative to Royal Caribbean. You've made a really significant commitment to the city. You're the only cruise line that is a member of our Chamber of Commerce, and I know that means a lot to our local businesses. So I want to thank you and Royal Caribbean for being a member, an active member of our chamber. It does mean a lot to us. And I also want to thank you for your time today. You're a busy guy, and I do want to thank you for taking some time out to be with us. And I hope that you are able to come to Victoria in the very near future, and you know where to find me. And I'd be happy to buy you a glass of wine, a beer, or a coffee, or any of the above. So let me know. But again, I wish you continued success, Hernan, and everyone at Royal Caribbean. So thank you very much. And to all of you that have joined us today, thank you very much. And it's been a real pleasure. Thanks you, Hernan.
Thank you for your time, Ian. Thank you, everybody. Looking
Bye-bye
forward
now.
to fellowships there. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.